according to which from July 1st we are switching to the service of maintaining houses. People say that that's the reform that will lead to the death of ZECs and something new will appear. What's happening in multi-storied buildings and condominiums? We will have this discussion about that now. Good afternoon. I'm the Deputy Director of Department of Maintenance of the Ministry of Regional Policy, and I'm implementing everything that was started in the sphere of the reform of the housing sector. Law 417 has been passed. We have some regulations which allow us to execute this law. Today the Ministry of Regional Development has prepared all the bylaws and regulations which were needed to execute law 417. The first thing is the law allows the consumers, the inhabitants of multi-storied buildings, to identify who will be managing and maintaining their house. The main thing is that there should be responsibility. The dynamic of the creation of the condominiums shows that the population became more active. They are interested in how these reforms will be implemented, what will be the rights that the co-owners of the house will get. Law 417 identifies what are owners of apartments, co-owners, what are their rights, how they define who will be managing the house. The Cabinet of Ministers will be passing the typical agreement between the manager and co-owner of the house. On the 24th of June, the Ministry of Justice registered the procedure for tender for management. The mass media say that from the 1st of July, ZECs stop their activities. ZECs are same participants of the market of management, just like any other entity, and they have the right to participate. If the citizens of the house are satisfied by the service provider, they have to get together and decide, okay, everything's fine, we continue to cooperate. If people haven't decided that, then the local authority has to appoint, has to start the competition, the tender, and for that the entities have to prepare to that. The analysis of the situation shows that about 35% of the citizens of multi-storied buildings have decided on who will be managing them. They have decided the form of management as OSBB, similar to condominium, or they are staying with the service providers that they had before, and 35% have not decided what they will do. And the problem is now that this is under the responsibility of the local authority. The local authority has to publicize the list of houses which are to participate in the competition. There should be the inventory of these houses made. Another piece of work the local authorities have to do, they have to write off from the balance the houses which have decided on their form of management. And that has also been approved by the resolution of the Cabinet of Ministers. The government, in order to implement this reform, has drafted all necessary documents. Today there will be the meeting of the sectoral committee, and they're preparing another law for the second reading. Thank you. The next speaker. Good afternoon, Tetyana Boiko, Coordinator of Public Utilities and Energy Programs, Civil Network OPORA. I'm one of the co-owners of the law. I'm the member of the working group. I would like us to see the video, what the law is about.
Які форми управління багатоквартирними будинками передбачає закон? Ви можете створити об'єднання співвласників та утримувати будинок самостійно. ОСББ або співвласники більшістю на зборах можуть найняти для виконання робіт управителя. Співвласники невеликого будинку можуть обслуговувати його самостійно. Для будинків, які до 1 липня цього року не визначились формою управління, місцева влада сама обере управителя – комунальну або приватну компанію. Пам'ятайте, саме ви вирішуєте долю власного будинку. Організовуйтесь і дійте.
Отже, що ми маємо?
So what is the situation today? Today it's 1 year since this law was passed, which means that for the houses which have not decided on what will be next, with those who have not created the condominiums, well, those who have not done that, they can manage this house themselves, and also they can hire the manager at the meeting of co-owners. If they do nothing, then there will be a tender held. This law launched the utilities and housing reform. What is this reform about? Before this law was passed, the market of services of services for multi-storied building was monopolized. We have people who are co-owners of some common property in multi-apartment buildings, but ZECs appoint local authorities. The ZECs are appointed by local authorities, and people do not take part in this process. And the result, the people do not feel themselves to be co-owners, and ZECs are not interested in servicing. Now there is a demand formed, which is an organized form of an organization of inhabitants, residents. They form the entity, and they will have a dialogue with those who would like to manage this building. They are now creating the responsible client, which will be forming proposals. The one who will be receiving business with proposals, they will not go to mayor and request, give me this house or this piece of house, but there will be a house, one, second, third company comes to it and offers their services. If the co-owners cannot find such company in the market, they can do it via statutory bodies of OSBB. But parallel to that, there had to be one another thing done. There should be a proposal drafted, and the law on introducing amendments to housing and utility services, which is to regulate the services, identify the responsibility, and define the price at the competitive market. this law hasn't been passed. The idea was that it was to be passed together with the law on specific features. Unfortunately, we lost this year, and it is important that it is passed, adopted by the end of this session, because we need to regulate this sector, and we call upon Parliament and ask them to speed up their work on this draft. This is important to implement the reform, but as Svitlana has mentioned, 35% of multi-storied buildings have decided on what should be the form of management. That means that the process of creating of OSBBs has become irreversible, and this is the percentage that can launch the market. The millions are now taking responsibility for managing the property, but there are people who have not decided yet, and also it is important to organize transparent, fair competitions where such managers will be identified. The procedure for this competition is on a website, but the text itself is not publicized. The text which is on the website of the Ministry of Regional Development has some corruption schemes. That doesn't mean it allows if, for example, in Kiev, the competition is announced for the whole of Shevchenkivsky district, that's clear that not many companies will be able to participate in this competition. And besides, this competition allows some houses to pay for others. We know that every house each house can set its own cost of maintaining, but within this scheme it is possible to create one common kettle where the people from a richer house will be paying from poorer house, and no other manager will agree to provide services to maintain this other building. So I call upon all anti-corruption journalists to conduct anti-corruption monitoring, to become part of commissions that will be electing the manager and monitor their activities, monitor their procurements, because unfortunately, Nasze Groszy research shows what procurements are made by companies, which very often are appointed by local authorities, and this is no secret. They very often are affiliated to the city mayor. And I would like to mention why this reform is so important. It's not just the reform of the relations of ownership. It's very painful, it's very complicated, but it's the change of mentality of our people. If we learn how to pass decisions outside of our apartment, as within one house, we will start thinking, who owns this territory outside of the building, who owns this park, who owns this city, and we will understand that there are no communal companies, but these companies are owned by us, the members of the territorial community, that's our property. And this is all our common property, and we will ask questions. How is the money spent, our money, and the money of taxpayers? And this way, starting from ourselves, we will start changing the world around us, and this way to change the whole country. This reform is very important to for creation of new Ukraine. And in the end, be active, create OSBBs, conduct monitoring, because there is a big resistance locally. They don't want to write off houses from the balance. All the houses are to be written off the balance, all of them. In most places, we see sabotage. Very often, the money spent according to title list and the system of kickoffs works. Only our activity can change the situation. The next speaker. Good afternoon. I'm Sauk Andriy. I'm the head of OSBB school and chairman of the board of OSBB in Bravary. We are talking about OSBB. OSBB is one form of management. There are many deficiencies there, but the main thing is OSBB is the best form. There's no better form of managing the house. OSBB allows every co-owner to participate in the management of the house without any exception. It is a legal entity, it has its own account, it has its own statute. And the statute describes the laws of life for the building. We hear that there are many communal or private JECs that resist creation of OSBBs. Esteemed JECs, I request you, it is very important. OSBB is not a competitor to JEC. OSBB is the most disciplined consumer of your services. We know how many OSBBs have taken the loans in the banks, and there's not a single bad credit. Even the OSBBs from the ATO zone pay back the loans to the bank, so OSBB will always be paying for your services. Whatever forms are created, the private JEC is creating a pocket OSBB. There are different situations. Then, again, people, when they start creating OSBBs, they start communicating. They communicate to each other. Our people do not communicate. They live for many years in one house and they do not even greet each other. When they start communicating, they become friends. That's normal communication of the neighbors. We've always had it. Now, especially in multi-storied buildings, we do not see it. It's the problem of communication, and people do not know that what is outside an apartment is ours. We're used to having an apartment. Then outside of the apartment, we can do anything. We can spill on the floor. We can throw some waste there, and these are things which we do not do in our apartment. Then people start reading laws. Before that, they don't read laws. They understand that that is common property. That's our house. No one will do anything in this house. If you are making a repair in the apartments, in your apartment, you control everything. But if someone else is doing it, then maybe in a month you will have to make another repair. OSBB is very similar to that. Let's give floor to one other colleague so that we can switch to Q&A session, because we will not have time for that. It is very important. The new legislation allows us to do much more than before. I am one of those who were creating OSBB according to the old law. Now it's much simpler, but all depends on you. If you want to change anything, you can do it. Thank you. And Tetyana. Good afternoon. I partially agree. Can you introduce yourself? General Director of the private company Stolychni budynky. Now I'm saying that we are the private company which is providing services to houses on the territory of Kiev and Kiev region. Now we provide services more to the houses in Kiev region. I disagree with the previous speaker that the private companies and private ZECs, we are not competitors to them, and we are not against people creating OSBBs. If the people decide that they want to create OSBB when the law is when we have this typical agreement, and the agreement is executed with the authorized person, and will continue to work. There are OSBBs which were created in 2011, but then there was no mechanism of transfer of a house for maintaining to private companies. Now there is such a chance, and we receive such houses for maintenance. We have 22 houses like that, and we are getting more and more houses like that, and people pay to us not just communal services. Everything is done by current repairs. We are trying to save money. We are trying to save electricity. We teach our people, we maintain our lifts. We don't have a permit for repair works in lifts, in elevators, but we can maintain the elevators. We're not talking about just your company. We would like to hear from you as a participant of the market, your assessment of this law, or of the regulations. There are some problems. If you have some general information, please share with that. Law 417 has been passed, and people have decided on who the manager should be, and that's correct. Now we are cooperating with the administration of Bucha. We have developed the plan of creating OSBBs. This law 417 is a good solution. Every person has to decide. People should know that the apartment belongs to me, and what is outside the apartment is also belongs to me. Now Q&A session. Please tell. From the 1st of July, ZECs are not operating today because the president has not signed the law. What do we do with that? Everything's working, everything's operating. On behalf of the Ministry of Regional Development, you mean the law 4680? First of all, the law has been submitted for approval. Procedurally, the Parliament has passed this law and we are implementing it. The law has one thing: for the period until the new form of management is defined, the previous are effective. And that is guaranteed by the current law on communal services. That says that these services are rendered without any interruptions. It is important that the President signs this law. It will provide another mechanism for changing this appointed manager. And this could be done anytime, just giving notification 2 months in advance. ZECs automatically do not terminate the agreements. Any other questions? If no, then thank you. I hope that we will be meeting regularly because that is a key reform. I would like to remind you that we have a big day today besides this norm. The law on budgetary financing of parties became effective, and that will lead to changing mentality of people. Tariffs went up, but tariffs will change all the time. Thank you. See you again.
Я просто думав, що ви хочете вправляючи компанію. Ви ще надаваєте обслуговування отримати. Бачите? Ну, 67, 450.